Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And school just started last week, so I definitely want to give a special welcome to all of our new families. Hope everybody had a good first week. We are good. We're going to start our meeting with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we will have roll call.
Trustee Manhattan.
Here.
Trustee Chow.
Here.
Trustee Liu.
Here.
Trustee Vogel.
Here.
Trustee Leong.
Here. Thanks, Erin. Okay, first item of business is board agenda approval. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Thank you, Phyllis. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ava. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Liu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leong.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is our board study session. I'm very, very excited actually because this is our first time to incorporate study sessions as a formal part of our board meetings. And study session is basically a time for the board to do a deep dive into any particular topic related to public education and specifically in our district. And I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Yao.
Thank you. So we are excited. This is a new feature that we will do once a month, and we have selected just various topics for throughout the year as updates and information that allows us to go a little bit more in depth. And we're definitely excited about our first topic tonight, the TK. As we all know, it's expanding and with some exciting news and a lot of work. And we're very fortunate to have a director overseeing the TK program, Michelle Harridge, our Dr. Harridge. And she's going to give us some updates and share some of the work that's done with the TK. And hopefully, I know as you guys are out doing your site visits, you will get a chance to stop in and see the energy out there with our little TK. So I'm happy to turn over to Allison and Michelle.
Well, thank you for having me. Welcome. I'm very excited to be here tonight, and it's fitting, I think, because this is the first one attached to the board meeting that it's TK, right when our students walk in the door of our school. So I think it's a great way to start. You'll notice from the title of the presentation, TK Let's Play Learn. That is actually borrowed from one of our curriculum titles, which is Sunday Let's Play Learn. And as we'll go through the presentation tonight, you'll be able to see how play is really incorporated into the curriculum for our youngest learners. So we'll start off. Just a moment. Yeah. Okay. We'll start off just talking a little bit about the idea of play, and we'll continue on talking about what play means and looks like. And sometimes the idea of play is that we just let children loose and they play and then we're done. But it's actually much more involved and really takes the expertise of our teaching staff to be able to do it effectively. And it does our pre-kindergarten TK programs, it really does show, research shows that that's very supportive of the way that they learn and is most supportive of them with their, not just their academic development, but their social growth learning as well. So, my clicker now. Just a little bit of background, just to get us all back on the same page of where we're at in this TK implementation right now. Am I too far? Did I? No. There we go. So our TK model here is that we are following kindergarten instructional minutes, the regular instructional day. The state requires a 12-to-1 ratio currently. There is talk in the future of it going to 10-to-1, but that is yet to be finalized by the state. So currently it is a 12-to-1 ratio. We have an instructional assistant assigned to every TK classroom full day, which allows us to stay in that ratio. We have 24 students maximum per classroom, so we wouldn't bump up to 36, let's say, for example, with a third person. The guidelines require us to stay at that 24 with the 2 adults. Timeline-wise, we are now in that middle column of the 23-24 implementation. So our current TK students are born between September 2nd and April 2nd and turn 4 this year during that time frame. So that's who you're going to see. It's going to continue expanding by a couple of months each academic year until the year 25-26 school year. And that will be our full implementation. At that point in time, all 4-year-olds will be eligible to attend TK. So it's very exciting. We've had great growth so far. We went from in 21-22, 11 classrooms up to 23 classrooms this year, which is really wonderful. So we now have TK at least one at every neighborhood school, in addition to McAuliffe. So we have one alternative school that has a TK classroom. So we're very excited about that. TK curriculum has been evolving over the last few years. We've been able to bring some new curriculum in. We've done some pilot studies with the teachers and now have curriculum growing in each area. We'll continue expanding year by year. It is different curriculum than you'll see in kindergarten. So for our literacy, we have our Making Meaning curriculum, which really helps with the big literacy piece and comprehension. The Sunday Let's Play Learn is really focused on the development of learning English skills, those foundational literacy skills. So you'll see phonological awareness like rhyming, alliteration, those types of things in the Sunday Let's Play Learn. Handwriting Without Tears. We have a brand new math program. We are thrilled with this new math program. All of these programs you'll see up here are very hands-on. They're very flexible. Teachers are able to have students in groups, flexible groups, to be able to best meet their needs. We continue on with social emotional learning, which is a huge focus in our TK classrooms. We really want to give them that strong foundation of being able to be in a school setting, making friends, understanding how to interact with others, regulate your behavior, all of those types of things, and your feelings. Of course, we start right away for any of our families where their children are learning English, that we have the same things in place for them. So they also take the LPAC assessment, and we provide daily instruction, both integrated and designated ELD. And we have a lot of integrated units that our very own teachers spent their summers working on, these really extensive integrated units, which are just amazing. And it ties in all of these pieces together. And it's a nice support for all of our new teachers. We have a lot of new teachers coming in over these next few years. So it's a great support built in. So what is TK? So you come into TK, we're really meeting children where they come to us. So wherever, some have been to preschool, some haven't. They come at all different levels. We're really looking at the child as a whole. And we want to make sure we're going all the different areas. So the curriculum is very hands-on. They're exploring, discovering, learning all of those foundational skills we want them to learn, but in a way that children learn best at that young age. So we'll take a little bit of a walk through each curriculum area. I'm going to put some baskets so that you can kind of peruse through as I'm talking. We have the social emotional learning. And one of the things we have for that is our Komochi. We also use Second Step, which is a program used district-wide. The Komochis allow children to help identify how they're feeling and to be able to express that.
Michelle, can you get a microphone?
Is this a talker? Oh, I'm so sorry.
You could just set it in the basket and it'll pick up your voice.
Sorry about that. Thank you. So I'll pass this here so you can take a look. Here's one of our books that goes with our Komochi. So when we're working with the children, we're reading literature, and then we're talking about our different feelings and how we solve problems together. So I'll just leave this here. You can peruse as you would like. So we're really looking at friendships, managing our feelings, regulating all of those big feelings that come when you're little. Right now, as we're starting school, we have, children who may be a little fearful of coming to school. So this support is really important. And our teachers are just amazing at helping them to feel comfortable and at home. we have our literacy component. So at this stage, they're really learning to identify letters, upper and lowercase, their names. They're starting to hear the sounds and attach that to those letters. They're understanding when they look at a book that the print is what relays the message. The picture is added information, but you actually need to read the text to know what's happening. So we have a few different things. We have our Sunday Let's Play Learn. And so again, I'll just have this here. We'll set it somewhere and you're welcome to take a peek. And you can see that the lessons are designed to really include children actively learning. So our piloting teachers for this, and we actually have grade levels and other schools using this across the district at different levels. So it has a cohesiveness to it throughout the grades, which is really wonderful. We also have the handwriting without tears. So we don't want just children to sit and draw letters all day. We want them to really see how they go together. We get the strokes together of the letters. And you can see in here, this box here has some wooden pieces. They can fit the sticks and the curves together. They can use a mat to do it. You'll see here they have little boards that they can try and match and learn how the letters work. There's also for the magnet, so you can put it up on the board. The teacher can use it. And then, of course, your hand, so you know what you're doing, left hand, right hand. So some really fun stuff for the kids to be able to learn that as well.
Michelle, would you prefer that if they have questions, they wait till the end of your presentation, or do you want to?
I'm happy. Yeah, if you have questions now, please feel free to jump in at any time. Are there any questions so far? I was just kind of going straight through. Anything so far?
Okay, one question I can.
Sure.
Is there any evaluation for these kids, how they're doing or no?
Yes, absolutely. So we have different assessments built in the programs. And then one of the things that our teachers did during a summer work group is we had one group of teachers that came and they did an alignment of the standards for the preschool learning foundations and the Common Core kindergarten. The state puts out a document called an alignment document that is the basis for TK. So we did that work as a team. And once we determined what was our focus and what our goals were for TK, we aligned assessments that are on the report card. And then we also have some more formative assessments teachers can use in their classrooms on an ongoing basis that reflect those standards that we came to agreement with our alignment. So they do have ways to assess to see how the children are moving along throughout the year. Yeah. Great. Okay. We also have, as I said, a new math program this year. We're very excited about it. There's all kinds of fun components to that. We have some music that's involved in this math program. They have a like an online big book that moves and is animated, as well as all of the hands-on materials. So there are quite a bit of hands-on materials with this program. All of our teachers were unanimous with this selection, so that was really, really great. We do have here, this is just an example. When we're talking about math, we might have abilities to sort by shape. We might be sorting by color. We might be sorting by size. Those are all standards that we're looking for our TK students to learn. We want them to know colors, shapes, how to sort, how to pattern. So that's in this basket as well. Give that to you. And you can see some of the standards up here that we're looking to have the students master by the end of their TK year, counting to 20, one-to-one correspondence. Science and social studies, a lot of that is done within our integrated units. It really fits well with thematic learning for young students. Here's an example of a pumpkin. So they might be doing things with seeds and learning vocabulary that ties in. So you may see that with science and social studies. And then, of course, we want them outside and moving, getting those gross motor skills going. And burning off a little bit of that TK energy while they're outside. But we're also looking at some of those skills, hopping, jumping, galloping, those types of skills that we want our young learners to accomplish. And then, of course, just as you see in the older grades, we do workshop learning. So the students are in small groups. They may be doing a literacy group or a math group. So we have all of these different types of workshops that are happening in TK. Music and art, of course, very important. We want them to be in there and getting a little bit dirty with their hands. It's okay to get paint and and really get in there and express themselves and gain that confidence. So, of course, Mr. Fred Rogers, who we all know, play is often talked about as if it were a relief, but for young children, it is serious learning. And as I said earlier on, teachers are very intentional about how they set up an environment. When a parent walks in, they may see, oh, it looks like they're just playing. But what's behind that play, a teacher knows what the standards are. They know their students need to work on fine motor or they're working on sorting. So the play activities they place out are specific and intentional for that child's learning. So now it's your turn. I shared with you a while back at some point, we put together and Erin and I worked on this as a team. And we have the Tinker Boxes. One of the things we really want to do is engage our new families and welcome them into CUSD and know that we're here from the very beginning. So we have these Tinker Boxes, but today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you again, but this time you're going to try something with the Tinker Boxes. So what you're going to do, and I'd also, while we're passing this out, I would also like to give a very big thank you to CEF for donating resources to be able to purchase these materials. So a very big thank you to CEF for that. Okay. And one for you, Superintendent. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So in your boxes, you're going to see what all of our brand new TK students get right at the start of the year. So we have all kinds of fun things in there. Once you can get the box open, they're very tight. We don't want it to fall out too early. So what you're going to see in there is a variety of materials. You're also going to see some information. So there is an information card that you'll see about our district priorities. You're going to see information about the activities that parents can do at home. There's a scan code. We worked with Raquel from Tinker Labs, and she helped us to create these activities. So when you do a scan, you can actually watch a video of her showing parents while they're at home getting this kit and to learn how to work with your child with these materials. So it's very fun and very engaging for families. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to have you imagine that you're a student that came into TK and you chose to play with Play-Doh today. So if you can find the Play-Doh in your Tinker box. And I'm just going to give you 2 minutes or so to play with the Play-Doh. You walked in, I'll give you 1 minute, 2 minutes, and go ahead, and that was the center you selected today.
So can the kids get the lids off? Because I can't.
They would more than likely might hear, teacher, can you help me? I'm going to be going through this in fast time, not actual classroom time. I see that you're pinching the sides in there. You've got it a little bit flattened out.
Oh,
I see. Oh, I wonder, it looks a little flatter on top. Okay. Oh, I see you chose to put your Play-Doh right on top there. I wonder what would happen if you put a different color on top. I wonder if it would stay, or I wonder what might happen next. I see on yours, it looks like it has parts coming out of each side. Okay.
Arms, little
Arms.
arms.
Oh, they're arms. Great.
The purple snowman.
Purple snowman. That is really, it matches your shirt as well.
Yes,
I wonder what might happen. Do you have another color?
I do. I
wonder
do, but I
what
thought
might-
I'd use this one first.
Aha,
But,
okay.
Yeah,
Great. Oh, I see. You've used more than one color. I see, and you put it right on top. I wonder if those are going to stick together or come apart. So now, everybody, what I'd like you to do is take a bit of your Play-Doh and I want you to roll it like a snake. So you're going to roll it into a line. Oh, I see Superintendent, yeah, rolling this way like this. So we're going to make it just like that. And once you get it rolled out into a snake, I want you to bring the ends together and make a circle. So it's going to be a circle like a 0 or the letter O or an I. You're going to make a circle.
So much pressure.
There we go. There's a circle. It goes all the way around. It's connected all the way around. There we go. Some are large circles and some are small circles. Different colors. Great. There's another circle. Wonderful. So as we're going through this and you are playing with your Play-Doh, I want you to be thinking about a couple of things. What are you noticing? How do you feel while you're using the Play-Doh? And what do you think, what learning might have been taking place throughout this short time that we've been able to speed through a little bit of a lesson with Play-Doh? Any thoughts or any questions about any of these or anything else that you might have on your mind about it?
I think for me, the first thing is just figuring out what I want to make. There's so many things. At first, I wanted to make a little puppy, but then I realized I don't really know how to make a puppy. And I started rolling the ball. And so I think that's one part of it. The other is just the texture. It's not as sticky as it is sticky, but not enough for the arms to stick out right. So just kind of learning the texture of the material.
Right.
Yeah. So
a lot of learning there. A lot of learning was happening just in that description that you gave.
mhm.
Any other thoughts?
I think some kind of a planning or imagination, everything you're putting in their thought, because there is a one-line task and how to and it's free, whatever they think they can put it. So a lot of creativity, imagination.
Right. Definitely.
I think what I noticed was the reinforcement that you were giving as the teacher and just like saying, oh, this is what you're doing, or, oh, what would happen if you did it this way? So it was just, yeah, very, what's the word? Not organic, but I guess a little bit organic, but very responsive to what the,
Taking the lead
students,
from-
yeah,
Mhm.
what the students doing.
Any other thoughts? So what I wanted to share is next, it's when we think about play-based learning, there's a continuum. There's a continuum of play. And as we went through this, I might not do this all at once like we did today, but there is the self-determined play that children have. And that self-determined play is where when you first opened your Play-Doh up, I didn't direct you what to do. I just had you imagine you came up to a center and you chose Play-Doh and you got to do whatever you want. And everybody made a different choice of what they were doing. There was no right, there was no wrong. You were as you mentioned, you were feeling it. I wonder if the texture's the same. You're making your decisions on what you might want to do, all of those types of things. Then as I started intervening and talking to you, I started directing you a little bit more. So now we're kind of in that adult child collaborative play. I'm taking your lead. I didn't ask you necessarily to stop what you were doing, but I kind of questioned and had you think about something. I wonder if you added more. I wonder if you added a new color. So now that teacher interaction is taking place, that helps to stretch a child's thinking. So as they're doing their activity, you're helping them to grow. At the very end, the last thing I asked you to do was a very specific task, and that was to take it, make it a certain way. And then I talked about that it could be a letter, it could be a number, but I asked you to do it, and that was very adult driven. So that was me telling you how to play. So this is a continuum, and there's all kinds of nuances as you move along this continuum, and teachers do ebb and flow out of that, using that expertise they have on what they're individualizing for each child. So there's a lot that's in a play-based lesson that sometimes you can't see when you just walk in. It looks engaging. It looks active. It looks, you see children. It was very quiet when you first started using the Play-Doh. You were all thinking about what you wanted to do. And so you were very engaged, and our children and our students are very much the same. So as we kind of look at each little area, the self-determined play here, it's voluntary, it's very intrinsically motivated, where it's centered on that interest of the child. And oftentimes you'll see that something they're kind of working on and interested in learning, that's what they're going to try and do. They're right on their edge of their learning curve. Teachers are really listening, observing, and seeing what skills they notice, what things they may want to reinforce in lessons, what other activities they might want to add. In the adult collaborative play, you're going to see different levels of guidance. So those nuances that I was telling you about. So it can be very minimally guided with just a couple of things, or I can move all the way up to very intensive. I might sit down, I might even join in on the activity, still letting the child lead, but I might become a lot more involved. Once we get to the adult planned and directed play, really we're moving into the other territory of the adult leading it. And that's for a very good reason. There are specific lessons and skills the teacher is looking for that child to acquire, but they get to do it in a way they're using their hands. There is still the individuality of each child and how it turns out. So when you did your circles at the end, some were thicker circles, some were thinner, some were smaller. So all of those were still circles. A child can feel very successful, but the teacher has also accomplished the task that they set out to accomplish. So I wanted to say thank you for coming along with me on this journey of playing and getting in there and trying it out. This comes from UPK website page. It's put out by the state of California, and it provides guidance to administrators, to teachers on that implementation of UPK. Now you'll see the P in the middle. So there's UTK, which is Universal Transitional Kindergarten. UPK is that Universal Pre-Kindergarten. It's the P3 initiative. So that's really that continuum from young children up through third grade. And again, it's showing how should this time be allocated? What should you be doing? We should have learning centers. We should be doing individualized learning. I can't read it from here, so I'm going to use my cheat sheet over here to look more carefully. There we go. You'll see on there small group math and literacy instruction, music, movement, and mindfulness, the read alouds, which really help tie in. They're doing a lot of individual skill learning. They're learning all of those sounds and letter names, but we can't forget, we need to know why. What's the big picture? What is that literacy piece, the comprehension, the understanding? And then community building, teacher modeling. And the last one you see here is the centers. And what's really wonderful is this type of teaching and learning ties, is the way young children learn, but it continues to tie in as we go up the grades. When we're doing our literacy instruction in third grade, and we're doing some small groups, and it's continuing on in this fashion, starting out with our youngest learners, moving to our older learners. So as we're wrapping this part up, I wanted to just share a little bit of information about our TK is the place to be. So we have parent workshops. I do them throughout the year. This year I have 4 workshops scheduled. All the compliments again to Erin Lindsay for the wonderful design. That was not me. And we meet with parents in the evenings. It's on Zoom, so they can do it right from home. We often get the children in the background waving in the cameras, participating along as we do our parent nights. And we'll have 4 this year. And we also do a TK parent orientation for the incoming parents for next year. Along the way, at all of these different parent nights, we invite our teaching staff, our principals to come and be a part of it. And so they'll sit in the chat, answer questions for parents. They may present part of the lessons. We also work with Dr. Julie Nicholson, who is very instrumental across the state of California in helping districts and programs implement play-based learning, and has a very strong expertise in early childhood. She comes and meets with us and our TK teachers. We feel very lucky to have her. So that's just an example of something that we might be talking about during one of our TK parent nights, questions to ask to encourage learning during play for parents. And we demonstrate, show videos, talk about it. And those are our parent nights for the year. So that's what I have for you this evening. I thank you very much for your time and for your participation. I am early childhood, and I love for everybody to dig in and get their hands dirty. So thank you very much. If you have any questions that have come up, I'd love to be able to answer those for you now.
Questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Jenny.
Did you have questions?
Yeah, some comments, questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for taking this us to Playland. I really, especially, I think this immersive experience. I can't remember when was the last time I played with Play-Doh. It must be like, I don't know, 20 years or something. And so that was really great. Couple of questions. I really love this sort of starter box. Is this something that we've been doing for a while? Is this new? Is this whole notion of giving them these hands-on sort of toys? I don't know what the right term is to have. Could you say a bit more about this, how this came about? This is just great.
Sure, it is new. So we worked on the concept last year. We had several meetings, Ms. Lanier, Ms. Maines, Superintendent. Yeah, we talked about all of, kind of got the concept together. And one of the things that we were really wanting to do is to help new families feel very welcomed into the district, and to have a first reach out, that we reach our hand out first to say, we're welcoming you. We're so excited that you're here. And so through this concept development, we spent a good amount of time last year really thinking about what would be the right thing and what would be a way to help introduce them into this kind of learning as they move into TK the following year. So by the end of the year, we had it together. We were able to have a team. We actually sat right here in this room, and we had participation from many people here and others, and we put the boxes together, and we sent them out at the end of the year. But we knew, and that was because we had the year of the concept development, but we knew our idea was to be able to welcome in. So during the summer, we put together the kits for this year's students, and they are in the process of going out as we speak. So some did on their meet and greet nights, and some were waiting for their first back to school night, but they'll all be going out in the next, either now to the next couple of weeks. And the parents will have, of course, all the information that comes in there as well. So we've just been really excited and have been getting great feedback.
All right, great. Thank you. This is just wonderful. Thanks.
And we had brought the boxes to you at a previous board advance, and based on some of the feedback you provided, we did add some additional collateral. You'll see the additional flyer about just an overview of the district and our priorities, as well as a kind of start of the year parent checklist. We want to make sure that they're downloading Parent Square, attending principals' coffees, just kind of who to go to and when. It's really just when you think about when you receive an unexpected package in the mail and you open it up and you think, wow, someone sent this for me. And these are really things that I appreciate and like. It gives you that sense of belonging, that sense of connection. And we're certainly, as a district, here to support our parents throughout their journey from TK through 8th grade. And this really was just that first touchstone piece for them. I also wanted to mention that the boxes this year were built in collaboration with some of the high school students from Fremont Union who received volunteer hours. And we last spring staff put them together, and seeing the high school students work that much faster and build the boxes and create their own assembly line process, it was amazing, and we were very, very appreciative and fortunate to have their help. And I'm hoping that as we continue to provide the TK boxes, that we have that partnership with the students again, because they are really quite fast and quite useful. So we really appreciated them.
Definitely.
I do like to make a comment that first of all, it's a box that is sustainable, it's recyclable. So I really appreciate that, and that we have a note to recognize where we got the funding for this from Cupertino Education Endowment Foundation. And I'm really excited about the curriculum. I've taught preschool for a bit of my teaching career, so this is great. It's all hands-on, and it does really engage the students. And I'm hoping that they pass on their experience to their friends and family, because in the engagement, the teaching and play is the best way, because it's all about playing. And I think that also kind of carries throughout our whole education. We love playing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So I have a question generally in the program perspective. So, okay, this is great. Everybody said great. Okay, so +1. So from Doodle and TK in parallel, right? How is it actually? Is it a transition to TK, or who's older, who's younger, and is there a path for them to come to this, or it's a completely parallel track, both are going? So can you explain a little bit?
I'm actually going to let Michelle answer that, because she is also our Doodle person.
Okay.
So we have the expert in the room.
Right. So our Doodle program, we have a very similar, same philosophy, I guess not similar, but same philosophy. It's based on play-based learning. They, of course, any parent is welcome to join on any of our parent nights. We invite TK specifically because we're working with that group, but of course, other families could join, including Doodle could join. As far as the that transition piece with this new TK implementation schedule, we do have more 4-year-olds going into TK. So, and that's the highest age of preschool. And so at this point, what's really interesting is that across the state, we have been, according to my research, one of the districts that have some of the highest participation in TK. My guess is, we have a great reputation for our district. Parents are very eager and excited to get started. At the same time, we still have very, very good participation in our Doodle preschool program. We do have parents that have a choice available to them, which is really great for our families. So we do have some people that choose to stay in a preschool setting for the TK year for a variety of personal reasons for our families, and then others that choose to go to TK. So we offer kind of the best of both. So whatever works best for a family, we're able to provide.
So from Doodle, they can go directly to K if they want. They don't have to come through TK, right?
Yes, they could. So it's age-based. So they could stay in, say, Cooper Doodle and then go directly to kindergarten based on age, if they selected to do that. TK is definitely an age-based program. So if you don't fit within the age criteria, you would either not be quite eligible for it, or you would be in kindergarten.
And for Cooper Doodle, what age group they can join? Like a 3+? Or?
It's 2.9 years through age 5 is what the license approves the program for.
And I do know one of our questions as we were expanding the TK, and as Michelle said, we are one of the districts that I think have had a very positive impact with our TK, and we're seeing the students come. I think one of our initial thoughts was looking at our Cooper Doodle numbers and concerned, are we going to eliminate our Cooper Doodle program by being in the TK? And we have not seen that. Our Cooper Doodle numbers are very healthy, very stable. And at some point, we will probably be having a conversation with you as a board, whether we expand the Cooper Doodle or if we stay status quo on it. But we are just seeing that the students coming in, and they really have helped to somewhat stabilize our enrollment, which has been a positive for the district as well.
I had the exact same question, Satish, about and I'll kind of tweak my question a little bit, because I still don't totally understand not the transition, but really the differences in terms of the curriculum, in terms of like, so let's say a student goes to K directly and doesn't do TK with us. Is the TK student who's then going into K the next year at the same time as the K student who, let's say, came from Cooper Doodle in this scenario, are they at the same level from a curriculum point of view, I guess?
So there are some similarities and differences between Cooper Doodle or a preschool setting and TK. Some of the differences would be there would be different curriculum choices for different programs. And in Cooper Doodle, for an example, there is a curriculum, it's teaching strategies. It's something widely used across California. And in addition to that, is now being used with some of the TK classrooms across California. Some large districts have adopted it. It does have a scope and sequence that allows for extended learning, so that you aren't, stuck at the end of maybe, say, your 4-year-old year, that you can continue learning. So some of the curriculum choices are different. The skills set is going to be similar. In a TK, we're going to be in the confines of a school day. So we do have those structured times where it's more similar to a kindergarten classroom, versus in a preschool, you may have students that are there longer during the day. So some of the learning is spread out a little bit more throughout the day, because some days are long for our youngest children. And so the teachers spread out the learning a little bit, so they have a little bit more. And when you look at that continuum that we had up there of the child self-directed play, you're going to see more opportunities for that probably in a preschool setting, because the day is often longer. So the skill set, we're still very heavy in both, with social emotional learning and development, and those foundational skills, whether it's in math or literacy, you're going to see that. So there definitely is a tie over. I will say also in preschool, we have a wider age band in classrooms. So some of the differentiation you'll see is based on that as well. So it's a little bit wider span than you would see in the TK setting itself.
Okay, thank you. I have another question about, so TK was initially, when it was first created, not the word, but like the intention was to capture like those kids that just missed the cutoff.
Right.
Right. And over the years, it's kind of evolved to be like a larger window of kids that just missed the cutoff. Right. And now at some point it's seems like it's heading towards maybe all 4-year-olds at some point, right? Like, I don't remember what the rollout for that is.
By 25, 26, it would be all 4 years.
All 4-year-olds. So I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but like in terms of maybe what's happening statewide or nationwide with kind of, it used to be kindergarten was where kids started, and now TK is where kids are starting. So at some point are families going to just automatically enroll in TK versus starting in kindergarten?
Yeah.
Is that going to become the standard? Or I don't know if you know the answer to this.
Right. Well, I think I can kind of give some generalities. So again, it does go back to parent choice, and it really has been just like at this point for public schools, you don't have to enroll until age 6. Kindergarten is there, and our families do take advantage of it for the most part, and up when they're age 5, at least. And as far as the, whether or not parents will, I think we're going to have to wait and see to some extent. I think the more that it, just as a kind of an opinion, I suppose, would be that as parents become more aware, more parents may take that opportunity. There are some, differences for families as far as timing and what they want out of a program. And preschools do still provide some differences in a setting. For example, one thing that Cooper-Doodle does offer that's unique is that we do have a bilingual Mandarin preschool program. And so that's a very nice feature for us. And it's something that some of our families choose and select. So we have that. And then I forgot the first thing you said. I was going to.
It was more just like I asked a lot of questions. I don't remember which question you referred to.
I don't know if it was.
Well, I think when you look at, the push throughout the country, and certainly in California, is that early childhood. And that's where we're seeing a lot of this movement coming from, getting your child earlier into the education setting. Kindergarten is optional. TK is optional. I think what's helped us is our ability now to offer that TK class at every neighborhood school. So there's that convenience for families. They enroll their child in TK. They then stay for K all the way up through 5th. And so, there is that convenience, and, it's a great program as if they're getting to do it. And I think said in the beginning, a Cupertino reputation, and you get to really even start them at a TK level at a 4th grade eventually, or a 4-year-old. That's pretty amazing opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Now that I think that was the part of the question I was missing, which was how it started with just kind of capturing the kids on the cusp. And it's really turned into a universal access type of a movement, so that all of our 4-year-olds have access to education at that time in their life.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Just thank you. It was great.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Do they get to keep their boxes?
You may keep your share it with a family member that might be young and enjoy playing. So thank you again.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Are we speaking with a 6
we would
o'clock?
adjourn until 6 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll go ahead and adjourn the study session and resume the rest of the board meeting at 6 p.m. Re-adjourning at 6 o'clock. I want to give another thank you to Michelle Herridge, our director for TK and Cooper-Doodle, for giving us a real close-up look at what's happening in our TK classrooms. I'm really excited to see the amazing growth that we've had and the way that we're engaging our parents. All right, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 3.1 employee organizations. Erin, do we have any representatives speaking tonight from any of our 3 employee groups?
We do. We have CEA President Kate Lee.
Great. Hey, Kate. Come on up.
Make sure my phone is off. Yep. Hi, good evening, afternoon, still light out. I'd like to speak to you about a few things this evening. Our school year is well underway. Our teachers and students are settling into their schedules and their procedures, and all the wonderful things that they're doing in their classrooms, including starting up with those social emotional lessons, safety on the internet, how, what bathroom to use. That's always a really important one at the beginning of school. And also just, how all the different philosophies and ways that our different sites go through the school year. So that's really great. And I'm really happy for all the teachers and students and parents that are back. I would like to, since that's all kind of underway, I would like to send a shout out to our parent community to encourage you to sign up as a noon duty aide. We're very short of them. It's typical that we're short of them, but particularly at the beginning of the year, we're very short. And noon duty aides basically come in and help supervise the tables where the kids are eating, as well as the play areas. Do we have them in middle school also? Yes, all our middle school. Yeah, we do. But we need more, right? And so, and one of the reasons I'm encouraging parents is because I was a noon duty aide at Regnard for many years when my kids were going through there. It was a paid position then, so you actually get paid. It was just totally volunteer, but now it's a paid position for one day for each day of the week that you come in. And the reason I encourage it is because it was a wonderful experience. You get to know the other kids in your grade, in the children's grade level or in other grade levels. You get to know the staff and the principal. You kind of see how things are. And you also get to see your child. And I will make this division because elementary school, they're going to be thrilled that you're volunteering and that you're in school, and they're going to be going, that's my dad. That's our helper. So middle school, it was a little different. When my eldest got into middle school, I was like, okay, I'd like to continue doing the yard duty, but I want to check in with you because you're a big middle schooler now. And he was like, it's okay, but just don't make eye contact. So that was what we worked out, and it was great. And that was really great for me too, as a new middle school parent, to really see, how they do this wonderful thing of kind of like the sixth graders are kind of in one area and, can gather together for lunch and brunch time. So again, I will look right up in the camera at you. I really encourage you to get in touch with your principal and see if they are in need of noon duty, yard duty aides, because it will be a wonderful experience for you. It will help your school community because we've got hundreds of kids out there in a 45-minute period playing and eating, and we really need the supervision. So everybody stays safe. But it'll be a really nice chance for you to get to know the school and other kids and the people teaching at your school. The other thing I want to address, which is on the agenda, the two items on the agenda, is once again revisiting that we have contracts that we're having to sign for psychologists and I think maybe behavioral specialists, because we can't attract and retain our special ed employees. And I think I brought this up in July when we had to sign a contract for some back then. And I want to revisit it because it's so essential. I think especially for our population of students with special needs, that we have that consistency in our staffing of special education support, specialized support services, as well as our SDC classes. We have a really big turnover. And I know it's a area in education that does have high turnover and is hard to attract and retain. But I think I would love for us to work together on, and really, the school board, as well as our executive cabinet and special ed folks at the district, really take an honest look and like really look through, like, what do we need to do to make this working environment and salary, but working environment, because special ed has huge workload and legal obligations, right? So what can we do to make this a better working condition, to make sure that our special needs students are getting the support they need, and that we have consistency in that, and that there's really good policies and procedures, and they're efficient in terms of the type of work that our special ed employees are required to do, not just by the district, but by federal and state legislation and regulations. So I would be really looking forward to working on that, but I really think it needs to be like everybody's perspective and looking in and saying, how can we make this better for our students and for our special ed staff? Let's see. And I think the other thing that I wanted to address was the bond. I think there's a presentation at the end of our agenda for a bond and some background on it and some possible potential options that we have. And I know that CUSD is really high. And when you do look at a lot of different aspects, and we are really strong in a lot of different ways, but I would say that the age and disrepair of our schools is not one of our strengths. I just really appreciate and all of our SEIU maintenance people, from grounds to HVAC to clearing off the roofs to everything that they do to keep our schools in as decent shape as they can, given the number of them that there are and the repairs and situations that we have at our schools, including drainage and everything. So I'm really looking forward to hearing and seeing what's presented tonight, and making sure that there's an understanding out there that our schools need not just some little Band-Aid repairs, but some major funds as well as programs put together to address them. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Kate.
I'm looking forward to meeting all the new principals and VPs.
Thank you. And do we have any other employee groups speaking?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. So we will move on to agenda item 4.1, public comment. This is time for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. We limit each comment to no more than 3 minutes per person, depending on the number of comments that we have, for a total of 20 minutes during this segment. So if not all comments are able to be heard during this time, we will go back to public comment after all of the agenda items have been considered. So do we have any public comments today?
We do. We have 6.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Did you want to designate the time?
Oh, 6. Yeah, that's 3. Are we good with 3? Go ahead.
Okay. Isar Rar Sheik, if you could please raise your hand. Ishar Sheik, if you could please raise your hand if you're joining virtually. Okay, I'll move on to the next speaker. Chinchu Joseph, if you could please raise your hand. Chinchu Joseph. I'll be going to the next speaker. Boggy Defatharon, if you could please raise your hand. Boggy Defatharon, if you could please raise your hand. Moving to the next speaker, Naranjana Sarijan, if you could please raise your hand. Naranjana Sarijanan, if you could please raise your hand. Moving to the next speaker, Mika Varjhesi, if you could please raise your hand. Mika Varjhesi, if you could please raise your hand. And moving to the final speaker, AJ Shivai, if you could please raise your hand. AJ, if you could please raise your hand. And I do not see that hand raised either.
Okay, thank you, Erin.
If they've submitted comments, we'll get those.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Phyllis. So board always welcomes public comments. So for whatever reason you weren't able to speak but for whatever reason, you're always welcome to email us at board@cusdk8.org, as well as the comment cards do get sent to us after the meeting. So We're going to move on to agenda item 5.1, superintendent's report, and I will turn the time over to Superintendent Yao.
Thank you. I'm actually going to go up to the podium for this.
Whoa.
It is a special night. It is a special night. So I am just delighted to take this opportunity tonight during the superintendent report to bring in our new administrators that we brought to CUSD. I think there is a lot of excitement. I've had a chance to at least meet with all of them. They joined us for advance. We have new principals and new APs. And as a reminder for them, as newcomers into it, our board, you know that you each are assigned different school sites. So we thought it would be nice to get to meet each other before you're actually out there doing the school site visit. So this is an opportunity to meet and hear a little bit about our new leadership. I think they've hit the ground running. We're in day 6 of school, and I feel like they've already acclimated and settled right in. You would not know that they're new administrators to the district, and I'm just super excited for each one of them. So if I can get Howard to come up first. Howard Greenfield likes to go by Howie. He is actually a former special education teacher. I think he'll probably get some opportunities to do a little filling in the classrooms at Eisenhower, and a biology teacher who turned administrator. He comes from us from Evergreen School District, and you will hear that as a common theme. We have a couple new people coming from Evergreen, and he was a principal there since 2015. Howie's description is a very hands-on and approachable administrator that really gets to know his students and his community. So welcome to CUSD, and we do have a small swag bag for you. To welcome you as well. And still remember that we'll be visiting at Eisenhower. Next, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn Deweese is our new principal at Kennedy Middle School. She comes from Redmont Shores School District, where she was an elementary principal since 2019, right in time for that pandemic. Before that, she was a middle school principal in San Lorenzo Unified School District, and she has a vast wealth of experience at all grade levels. So brings that wealth of experience and knowledge and perception in with us. And so welcome to CUSD. We have several new APs in our district, so I'd like to bring them up. First, Oscar, you want to join me up here? And I know that Oscar's principal is also here, Jean Wang from CMS. Oscar comes from Evergreen School District. He was a middle school assistant principal there. He also has experience as a high school administrator, and he was an assistant principal in San Jose Unified School District. Again, we are very fortunate to get our leaders coming in with a vast amount of experience. We're glad to have Oscar as part of our CSD team, and I know that Jean is excited. And again, I know he's hit the ground running, so welcome. And Oscar, your board member will be Satish.
Hello.
So you'll get to know him well. And we have a small swag bag for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next AP is our new middle school AP at Lawson Middle School. And again, I know Erin Leary, principal, is here to join us as well. Nina Charleston is newest member of Lawson. Nina comes from the Netherlands, where she was a leader for learning at the Dutch International School. So amazing experiences that she's going to bring with us. And then prior to that, she was the Dean of Students in Chicago Public Schools. A ton of experience in the social-emotional learning and response to intervention. So CUSD is very fortunate to have her. Recently got married, had a name change, so we will adjust. And Nina Charleston, and welcome to Lawson Middle School. And then we have a small. And will be your board member working with Lawson Middle School.
Thank you.
All right, Deborah. This may be a familiar face to some of you. Deborah Lopez is the new assistant principal at Miller Middle School. She has been a teacher in CUSD since 2007, so you may have seen her out around on your visits. Anu Air is the principal of Miller, joining as well. Thank her for that. She has worked at elementary schools and has taught math and science at Miller Middle School. She's truly a highly respected member of the Miller community. Excited to have her. Again, she brings that wealth of knowledge, skills, and just really knows the staff and community. And I know that she's hit the ground running, and was out on campus the other day and observing her getting to work the lunch duty, and she jumped right in. So welcome and congratulations. And we have a small swag bag for you. Another familiar face, Kathy Olson. So Kathy Olson is our new assistant principal at Hyde Middle School, and she has been in the district since 1993.
Wow.
And she's been working at Hyde since 1993, so it says a lot. She's been a teacher and an intervention specialist. I know that Mr. Nuno's principal is here as well and has just welcomed her in. All the values, the relationships are just so important at Hyde, at any school, and she knows the community well, and she's just a great asset to this campus as well. So congratulations, welcome aboard. Jenny Kim. So Jenny may look familiar to some. She is a new assistant principal at Hyde Middle School as well. She actually is coming from us from Evergreen School District, but she was a former CUSD. So we had the honor of having her work in CUSD from 2014 to 2021. She was an instructional coach. She has a ton of experience in PBIS and student activities, which again are so important at our middle schools. Mr. Nuno is thankful to have her on his team, and I know the three of them have already worked together and are forming some great relationships and are just so welcomed by the community and staff. So congratulations and welcome, Jenny. And here will be Hyde's board members. And then our final AP, Anna. Another familiar face, and it's just amazing to get to see our rising stars come up through our system. Anna is our new assistant principal at Stockholmeyer Elementary, our only elementary school still with the remaining AP. She's another one of our homegrown administrators, and she has worked in CMS at CUSD since 2005. She taught sixth grade in core, and she has also been our summer bridge coordinator for the last 2 summers and done some amazing work there. Anna's ability to build relationships will benefit the Stockholmeyer community. I know that Ann Kropp, the new principal at Stockholmeyer, has welcomed her and just has already really praised her for just settling in and knowing the staff and getting to know the community. And I know that the two of them will be a great leadership partner there at Stockholmeyer. And your board member that you will be seeing often will be Sylvia. So a little swag bag for you, and congratulations and welcome. And I just want to add, as we've been out there searching for administrators, there is really a job market out there for teachers and administrators. And so we're very fortunate when we're able to get these very high quality that just continue the work they're doing. When they joined us at the advance, there was that excitement. They jumped right in. They understand where we're headed, and they are fully on board with us. And it just makes the work so much easier, and all based on students. So I'm very happy and delighted that they're joining CUSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Yao, and welcome to all of our new principals and all of our new assistant principals, Howie, Gwendolyn, Oscar, Nina, Debbie, Kathy, Jenny, and Anna. We are so excited to have all of you joining us. And I think I can speak on behalf of the board, like hearing all of your background and experience, I feel very proud that you've chosen to come to us, and I feel very happy and excited for our students that they're going to get the benefit of all of your knowledge and all of your experience. So on behalf of the board, welcome. I think we're all going to be looking forward to meeting with all of you, and hope you have a wonderful first year here in the district, or here in your new roles, for those of you who've been with us for a while.
Thank you.
All right.
I know they are all extremely busy, so I would say, please feel free to leave. You don't have to stay for the board meeting. I know there's a lot of other things that are pretty busy, so thank you for taking the time. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, we are going to move on to the consent calendar. These are items concerning routine school operations or items that we've already reviewed and discussed. So, can I get a motion?
I motion to move 6.1 to 6.7.
Great, thank you, Ava.
Consent calendar.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you, Satish. And do we have any public comments? Okay. Can we do?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Can we do a roll call vote?
Yes, trustee Madhatil.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leong.
Aye. Great, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we're going to move on to our discussion item 7.1, district's long-term fiscal stability. Chris, are you?
So I will turn it over to Chris. So I just wanted to preface, we're continuing to work to talk about stabilizing the district and looking forward into the future. Every year we do bring you our multi-year. We talk about the budget, we talk about our priorities, and really planning to make sure that all of that happens. And so we want to continue to take those outlook years and see how do we continue to improve and give back to our students. And so we do have some information tonight. Again, it's for you guys to consider thinking about where do we want to go in the future. There had been a reference earlier in the evening about our facilities and how do we ensure that the facilities are the best for our students and able to provide that learning environment for all. So I will turn it over to Chris Chu.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Good evening. Before I introduce our guest, I just wanted to share with the board tonight. So tonight, we're going to talk about two items around the bond. As you know, we have a financial advisor, Dale Scott and Company. Unfortunately, Dale is not here tonight, so we have one of his associates here presenting tonight. But since we brought Dale Scott on board as our financial advisor, one of their tasks is to advise the district as far as when there are opportunities to go back and look at existing bond debt that we have. And what it comes down to is looking at trying to refinance those to provide additional savings to our taxpayers in the community. So tonight, I believe, well, Joe Crump is the associate with Dale Scott. He will first talk a little bit about some opportunities for us to refinance some of those bonds. And then after that, we'll segue into the discussion about down the road, should we want to entertain a future bond, what that timeline looks like, get some feedback from the board on the process, and I'll leave that part up to Joe. So I'll introduce Joe Crump with Dale Scott and Associates.
Right. Well, good evening, members of the board. My name, as Chris mentioned, is Joe Crump from Dale Scott and Company. And yeah, just to recap what Chris mentioned, I'll be discussing two potential opportunities the district has. So the first one relates to a potential refinancing of some of the district's outstanding general obligation bonds. And the second relates to potentially putting a bond measure on the November 2024 ballot. So before I get into that, let's go over a little bit of background, which you're probably familiar with. Historically, the district has had three general obligation bond measures. So the first was in 1995, and then another one in 2001, and the most recent was in 2012. All of these measures have been highly supported by the local community, and of course, no authorization remains from any of these measures. So currently, from these prior measures, nine series of general obligation bonds are currently outstanding. So that's what this table shows, and it has a lot of detail. But I want to direct you to the column on the far right, which is the optional call date. So the optional call date is the first date after which the bonds are eligible to be refinanced. Typically, a bond is structured with a call date 10 years from the point of issuance. But you could see, looking at some of the top rows, some of the bonds are non-callable. But for those that are callable, the next call date is not until 2026. And then there's another one in 2028. And then the second to the last row, there's a call date in 2029. So you look at this, and none of the call dates are anytime over the next few years. Let's focus in on the last two rows that have been highlighted. So these bonds are the 2019 refunding and the 2020 refunding. So one of the things that's different about these bonds compared with the others is that they were issued on a taxable basis, meaning that the interest earned by the bondholder, the investor, is subject to federal income tax. Now, the reasons for that are a little bit complicated. It has to do with the change in tax law that occurred in 2018. But that's different than most bonds, because most bonds the interest earned by the investor is exempt from federal income tax. So we'll go into that in a little more detail in a couple of slides, but just keep that in mind. The other thing to note is that if we look at the call dates of these two bonds, again, the two highlighted bonds at the bottom, is that the first one, the 2019 refunding, the call date is in 2029. The 2020 refunding has kind of a complicated call provision called a make-whole redemption. It's a little complicated to explain, but suffice it to say that under that provision, that bond cannot be called in a way that will save money for several years at the earliest. So basically, if we look at these call dates, there doesn't appear to be a refinancing opportunity right now under these provisions, but I'm going to discuss in a couple of slides that there is still a way to refinance these bonds, and it has to do with the fact that they were issued on a taxable basis. So before we get into that, why are refinancings or refundings so important? Over the last 20 years, the district has done several of these bond refundings, and little by little, it's achieved taxpayer savings. And the current total is almost $40 million of taxpayer savings. So, I think the key point to take away from this slide is that if you do these refinancings as they occur, then that will result in a large taxpayer savings over time.
Hey, Joe, can you advance the slide?
Oh, apologies. Yeah.
You mentioned $40 million.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm kind of focused on my computer, but yeah, good. Yeah, so just to recap, yeah, this shows the cumulative savings of all of the refundings the district has done over the last 20 years. And so if you can see little by little, if you take advantage of these refinancing opportunities, over time, it does add up. So let's get into more detail on the specifics of this refinancing opportunity. It's a little bit complicated, so bear with me and I'll pause for questions after this slide. So as I'm sure you're all aware, one of the big developments in the financial markets the last couple of years is that interest rates have started to increase significantly. And so what that means for these taxable bonds is that the market value of the bonds has decreased. So that has no effect on the district. It does affect the bondholder. So the bondholder is still getting the same fixed interest payments that they usually would. This is a fixed rate bond. But if that bondholder, that investor, wanted to sell those bonds on the secondary market, the bonds would be sold at a discount, a much lower market value than the actual par value of the bonds. So another way to explain that is, if I'm an investor wanting to buy a bond, I would much rather buy a bond issued today at a high interest rate than a bond issued in 2019 or 2020 when interest rates were much lower. And so if someone wanted to sell one of those low interest rate bonds, like the bonds that we're looking at, those 2019 and 2020 taxable bonds, they have to sell that at a discount. That's kind of the idea, because it has paid such a low interest rate relative to current rates. And so our proposal is that, working with an underwriter, we will go into the market and identify holders of these taxable bonds and offer to repurchase the bonds using the proceeds of a new tax-exempt refunding bond. And we will purchase it at the market value, perhaps with a slight, 1 to 2% premium, but essentially at the market value. And if we look at the table here, kind of to get more specific in terms of numbers, let's look at the table, the row that says principal. So the principal value of the outstanding taxable bonds currently is just under $155 million. But the market value of those bonds is about $125 million. So the idea is, if you repurchase those bonds at or near the market value, that will generate a total savings of $30 million in principal. But, that's only one piece of the puzzle. If we go to the next row, interest, the current interest payments outstanding on these taxable bonds are about 30.3 million. But assuming we issue new tax exempt bonds to refinance these bonds, because interest rates are so much higher, the interest due on the tax exempt bonds is projected to be about 42.6 million. So in terms of interest cost, that actually generates a negative savings of about 12 million. But when you factor these two pieces together, $30 million savings in principal, 12 million negative savings in interest, that generates a total savings, we estimate, of about $18 million. And maybe a simpler way to look at it is at the pie charts. So the top pie chart shows the situation currently. So about $155 million of principal outstanding, $30.3 million of interest. After the refinancing, you see the interest cost is a bit higher, but the principal cost is so much lower that it does generate savings. So I should mention that these numbers assume that 100% of the prior bonds are refinanced. That's probably not going to be the case. It could be 50%, it could be 30%, it could be 20%. Because in this refinancing, the bondholders have the option whether or not they want to sell their bonds. Some of them probably will, but some of them probably won't. So we don't really know what that number is going to be in terms of how many of those investors, bondholders, are willing to sell the bonds. So assuming the district wants to proceed with this process, there'll be one of two things will happen. So the first possibility is that we go into the market and we don't find sufficient investors who are willing to sell the bonds at a price that makes the refinancing workable. And in that case, we come back and say, potentially this was a good idea, but we couldn't make it work. There's no cost to the district. And then we just kind of put this idea on the shelf. So that's one possibility. The second possibility is that we go into the market and we do find investors who are willing to sell these bonds back to the district. Let's say it's 30% or so. And then at that point, we could say, these investors are willing to sell at this price. So we estimate savings are going to be $8 million or $6 million. And at that point, if the district decides to go forward, we can proceed with issuing a new series of tax-exempt bonds to repurchase these bonds. So that's kind of the idea. But I just want to make that point that, if this doesn't work, then there's no cost to the district. So I know that's kind of a lot to digest, but I just want to pause here briefly. I'll pause later on as well, but if there's any questions on this process, I know that there's a lot going on here.
Thanks, Joe. Questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. So
Sure.
first, the numbers on here.
Mhm.
So you've accounted for the future value of money and all that. These are all in present day dollars, I presume. Because some of the interest we're paying out is interest we're paying in the future. So has that calibration been done, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these numbers are the savings numbers we're showing here are actual dollars.
Actual dollar, so
I can give you the number. I don't think I have the number in front of me. But the NPV savings, that's a good point. It's going to be lower.
It's going to be lower.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's right. That we can catch up on the details later. I just
Okay.
wanted to know. The
Yeah,
second
that's a
then,
good question.
thanks. So second is, this is for staff. Do we need a voter authorization to go out for this, issue this refunding bond to pay off this one, or is that?
Yeah, so I think that will be a future step.
Right.
I think for now, I think we are just looking to get the go ahead to
Right.
begin this process, but
It's
not right now. There's
I understand the question. Do we need to go out to the community to get approval to go out and reissue?
Right, I know we don't need it to do the exploration, but let's say we do find that people do want to sell back and then we do want to go ahead and issue the bond. Do we have the authorization to do that without going back out to the community?
right. Yeah. So the answer is no. So
Okay,
this is a refinancing. There is, no new money bonds can be issued. The authorization's all used up, but for a refinancing, all that would be needed is board action to issue those refinancing bonds.
and then roughly then for a transaction like this, Or in terms of fees, what are we looking at, just percentage wise, high level, just the rough?
Yeah, I would say, my estimate would be three, kind of depends on the size. But let's say we do like this size,
Mhm.
it's quite a large bond, so tax exempt conversion, let's say it's 124 million. I would say you might be looking at, 300,000 in terms of cost of issuance. Underwriter's discount, that's like another fee. Might be like 200,000. So I can say 500,000 roughly.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, these are the two bonds that we did do the refinance in 2019, 2020.
Right, yes. And, I should mention, interest rates were so low at the time that, because typically taxable bonds have a higher interest rate than tax exempt. But, these refinancings made sense because taxable rates were, everything was so low back then. So that's why, even though it was a taxable bond, it still worked, still saved money. Okay, so, and let me just
I found the
brief,
fee shut.
or sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question is,
So I think where you stopped exactly last, the tax part of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, the interest part of it, right? So is it the right time then, like kind of interest rate is in the high and getting stabilized?
Mhm.
And so what happens, like let's say in the event now, the interest rate would, let's say, I don't know when it is, but it's going to change it anyway, right? So probably. And the principal value also would change accordingly then, or what is that? What's the right threshold point?
Right, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Presumably, let's say interest rates do go up, then yeah, that market value will continue to go down. But then on the flip side, yeah,
Yeah, flip
interest
side,
costs will
I'm
be
talking,
higher.
yeah.
So yeah, I think my sense is that the principal savings outweighs the interest negative savings as interest rates go up. So yeah, so conceivably, if interest rates are a lot higher, you could save more money. The thing to keep in mind is it's hard to predict interest rates. It's hard to say which direction they're going to go. But I think that's certainly a good question to ask, because I think there is sort of that dual effect. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think I'm trying to see that. I think again, like you wait for some time, it depends upon how the interest rate, the principal could change. So the net could be more or less same. Maybe now 70, like for example, the number what we put here is 70. So how much of the variations we can get it? Yeah.
And I also think if you look at the relative sizes, the principal is so much greater than interest that I think that's going to have a larger effect.
That's okay.
Yeah,
okay. I think that may be probably
value.
That's the right thing then.
Yeah, but you could have a bond that's the other way, where maybe there's a future payment in the future, and interest payments are higher than principal. So conceivably, it could be the other way, but I think in this case, the principal savings is going to be greater of the two. So I hope that helps. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Thanks.
yeah, I was confused by your response to Jerry's question. If we go forward with the refinance,
Yep.
does it require voter approval?
No.
All right,
So it would only
That's clear.
require board
Okay.
action. Yeah.
all right. And then the other question is, what's the incentive for these bondholders to sell?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know Dale's talked about that too. I think, in some sense, we don't care what their incentive is, as long as they're willing to do it. But I think, practically speaking, oftentimes, some investors might just want to cash out their position. So maybe they'll say, well, I could wait, 20 years to get this principal back, or maybe I could just get all the cash now, even though it's a lower amount. We do see some investors do that. We've worked on a similar program for the CAB restructuring. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the high interest capital appreciation bonds. It's basically the same idea, where we go to investors and just offer to buy back those high interest bonds. And many of those have extremely high interest rates, where the final repayment value could be like 10 times the actual purchase value. So the investor could make a lot of money if they wait, but oftentimes we've seen where they just don't want to wait, 10 or 20 years. So I think that's probably the main incentive, where a lot of these are mutual funds or pension funds or other types of investors. And for whatever reason, they might want to reallocate their portfolio, get out of this position, or maybe they want more liquidity, cash. So I think those would probably be the main reasons.
So in your experience, do people jump on this, or is it, we don't have any idea, or?
Yeah, I think this idea is still kind of in its infancy. So, I think we're interested to see how it will turn out as well. Assume how many bondholders will be willing to sell
Right.
the bonds. I think many of them will, but I think another question too is, at what price are they willing to sell those? Because conceivably it could be a high price where it just doesn't make sense to do the refinancing. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. Thanks, Sylvia.
Okay. All right. So yeah, before we get to the next topic, briefly, this is just a very high-level overview of the timetable. So let's say that this refinancing does work. We find like bondholders who are willing to sell the bonds back to the district at a price that makes sense. The board would then take action on a new tax-exempt refunding bond issuance. At some point, we would schedule a rating call with the district administration. Those new refunding bonds would be priced, and then those bonds close, and the proceeds would be used to repurchase the taxable bonds. And this whole process would probably take about 3 to 4 months. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, which is the 2024 bond election. So why is November 2024 so important? So if we look at this, the graph on the left, this is voter turnout for Santa Clara County over the past 10 years. And the thing that jumps out at you is how much higher turnout is in presidential elections versus all other types of elections. So we have data from the state of California as a whole. Over the last 20 years, since 2001, when Prop 39 went into effect, the success rate for GO bond measures in gubernatorial elections is about 80%. The success rate for GO bonds in presidential elections is over 90%. So that goes to show you why the November election, the presidential election, is so important. So in structuring these bond elections, one of the first things we look at is historical assessed value. So assessed valuation of the district is currently about $53 billion. The growth has been strong, an average over the past 20 years of 6% each year. And based on Prop 39, for an elementary school district in California, the tax rate limit for a new GO bond measure is $30 per $100,000 of assessed valuation. And so taking these historical assessed valuation growth rates, we project those into the future, and it's usually a fairly conservative projection. And using that projection, we will structure a new general obligation bond measure. So that's what we've done here. Using a conservative assessed valuation growth rate in that $30 tax rate limit, we're estimating, based on a conventional structure of 3 25-year bonds, the district could issue about $430 million of bonds for a new election. And so what does that mean for the average homeowner or taxpayer in the district? So this is a breakdown of single-family home assessed valuation in Cupertino. This data is from 2020, 2021. I think the current data is probably a little bit different, but probably fairly similar. So the average assessed valuation of a single-family home in the district is $1 million. So based on that, a new election would cost the average homeowner $300 per year. But you can see in the graph, there's a huge amount of variation. So for example, you have almost $4,500 single family homes assessed for less than $200,000. So those homeowners would pay less than $60 per year for a new election. So I think this kind of gives you a sense of, what would people be paying in the district for a new bond measure?
And Joe, in
Yeah.
regards to that might be kind of interesting to share with the board.
Chris, could you turn your microphone on?
That comment you made in regards to the about 4,500 properties in our district that have an assessed value of less than $200,000. Share a little bit about what that looks like. My sense is that these are original homeowners that their property values have been still being assessed at the much lower rate, and so it's not really reflective of really the current housing market.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point, Chris. Yeah. So, another thing I should point out in this slide on the left at the bottom, we've included the median value. I think that's median sale price in July of this year. So 2.6 million. So yeah, Chris is exactly right that for a lot of those assessed value homes that have a very low assessed value, a lot of those are probably older homeowners because the increase in assessed value, as long as you're the same owner, as long as a home has the same owner or property has the same owner, is 2% per year. So that has a big effect because the actual value of these homes on average is going to be significantly greater than the assessed value. This is going to vary district by district. Some districts are going to have, a larger amount of older residents who have been there a long time. So you might see a much bigger disconnect between the actual sale prices and the assessed value.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out when going through this one too is when you look at the percentage wise, we're looking at probably 25% of the homes are under the 400,000,
Yeah.
which is a significant number when we think about our community and the cost of the homes, and yet 25% are still at that under 400,000 because they are the original homeowners or passed through the families.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think this is just useful to get a sense of, what people would actually be paying for a new bond measure. All right. So lastly, a brief look at a timeline for a new election. So assuming the district wants to proceed, the next step would be to do a voter survey to gauge voter attitudes in the community to a new bond measure. And then based on those results, if the district decides to continue, at some point it would take action on placing a new bond measure on the ballot. And the first series of bonds could be issued as early as spring of 2025. So that concludes my presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Questions?
I can.
Too, but can you go first?
Go ahead, Satish.
It's not a big one. So only in this slide, right? So these are single family home we are talking here. And is there apartment complex and stuff like that? How does it come in picture?
Yeah, so I think, this slide only includes single family homes. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, all properties, including other residential properties like apartments, would also pay a tax. I guess the owner of the apartment.
Do they pay based on the total value of, so how do you assess, is it based on the property value there or how, or?
Yeah, I think it would be assessed similarly to a single family home. I don't know the details of the process, but you'd also have industrial properties, businesses. They would also be assessed. I think it's a complicated process because I know, we've dealt with some communities that have like a lot of oil related industry, and that assessment is complicated because it has to do with oil prices and profit. So that gets complicated. I think with single family homes, it really just has to do with market value. So once there's a new owner, it's reassessed at the current market value. And the same, I think an apartment building would be the same. If it changes owners, it would be reassessed at the current, real estate market value.
Because in the parcel tax perspective, it will be considered as one single parcel.
Right, yeah,
So-
right. So parcel tax is just one flat tax per parcel. Yeah.
So whereas here, it could be a different one for the apartments. It could be higher.
Correct, yeah.
For the tax.
So I'm still confused. Pardon me.
No problem.
If we go with the refinance that you talked about in the first part of
Yep.
the presentation, and we do it, we end up doing that. We have to then go to the voters to reissue, all right? So this is now a different election from this. So we're talking 2 times to go to the voters?
So, yeah, my apologies for not being clear. So there's no need to go to the voters for the refunding.
Two separate,
Yeah.
two separate items tonight. The first one is the refinancing. Those are on our existing bonds. It would be a decision whether we want to refund, and that's done completely, not
That's a
by,
board
not by,
decision.
that's a board decision.
So we're just talking about one election, and that would be a possible bond election in 24, a GO bond.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, I think the cobwebs are clear. Thank you.
And I think to further, if we, on the timeline there, where we would have to declare, I believe we have to file a resolution to do the November 2024's August.
Yeah, it's typically
First part of
August.
August
deadline,
twenty twenty-four is when we would have to file that we are going for a bond. So we do have some time. One of the thoughts there is we have that date up there for a voter survey. And I know when Dale Scott has been here before, he's done that recommendation of going out and surveying our community to see is there even an interest for it. The survey would probably take probably 10 to 12 weeks to get out there and get the results back to us. And so that was one of the reasons to bring tonight is, as we're thinking along that, if there is any interest in pursuing the bond, do we want to do that survey now? So at least we have that information so that then we could continue our discussions. You know, while that's in the process, if as a board you choose to go forward with the survey, what we'd like to do is we'll just continue to bring information about our infrastructure and what the possibilities are that we could be addressing during that time so that we can keep those conversations going.
Last one, just one simple.
Oh, let me, because I
Yeah.
think Jerry and Ava still had questions too, right? Can we go back to you later?
Yeah, that's
Is that okay?
I
Jerry,
went
go
first
ahead.
before, so I'm happy to take.
All right,
notes.
Ava, did you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. Thank you for being here and presenting. I was just estimating if 25, going back to the slide 12, if 25% of the properties are $200,000, and I'm going with your estimate, if the cost to the homeowners, if a property is worth 1 million, and if I remember correctly, you said we'd be about $600 a year.
Yeah, I think I might have misspoke. It's $300 per year for 1 million.
Okay,
Yeah.
$300.
Yep.
$30 per 100,000.
Right. Yeah.
If you do the math.
So $300. Oh, okay.
So yeah, good clarification. Yeah, So for the average single family homeowner with the average AV, $300 per year.
Okay, and then if we can go to preparing for 2024 on the following slide. After elections, the bond sale, and you were mentioned, I know it was in the previous presentation, but you were saying that since the interest rate is fairly high now, that is that more desirable for someone who's investing it so they can resell it?
In terms of the timing of when those
yeah.
bonds are sold. Yeah, I mean, I think our philosophy is, you can never really predict interest rates. Obviously they've been trending upward. But as new information comes out, though that information, whether it's rumors of a Federal Reserve hike or interest rate hike, at that point it's priced into the interest rate. So I think our philosophy is, you can't really judge interest rates. It makes sense to just issue the bonds when the district needs the funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
I had a question on slide 11. Can you just help me understand the 429?
Yeah.
Did that number come from How did you arrive at that number?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot going on in this graph. It's a little hard to, there's a lot going on. But essentially, so we're taking that $30 per 100,000 tax rate limit, and that is a limit on the annual debt service. So principal and interest, that's a limit on the annual debt service that can be repaid each year. And so that's basically what's represented by these bars. It's that we're showing it from a perspective of a tax rate, but we're structuring it under that debt service limit. And so, when we kind of do the math behind the scenes, we're not really showing it here. We're showing the bonds broken out by series, so 3 series. But within each series, you actually have principal and interest payments. And based on current rates, if we try to squeeze, those payments into 25, 30 years, about 430 million is the amount of principal that we come up with. Does that kind of make sense? I know it's hard to kind of grasp if you don't really see the process.
Maybe if I can try to take it too. So as far as I think your question is, as far as the total amount, how do we go about calculating the $430 million of principal? And so as Joe mentioned, it's tied to a tax rate based off right now a $30 per $100,000 assessed value, but it also takes into account that the bonding capacity of the district. So based off of the total amount of property taxes, what the growth is, it then can calculate what the total amount that we could actually, I guess, earn based off of that tax rate. So it's based off of our total bonding capacity, and that bonding capacity is based off of all the properties in our community. How much can we assess at a $30 per $100,000 assessed value?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. And of course, since it's based on assessed value, if we go back to this slide, obviously it's going to be trending upward over time, because I assume all of these elections were also structured. Well, at least the second two were structured based on, well, the 2012 election was structured based on that $30 limit. And you could see that was $220. Obviously, assessed value is greater now. So if we still apply that $30 limit, we're going to come up with a much greater number today.
So maybe I'm still not totally understanding. So for example, when we looked at like a previous bond, maybe this is a question for staff.
Mhm.
When we looked at our previous bond, it was the number that we came up with was based kind of on the facilities master plan and kind of, okay, here's what all of these things are going to cost.
Yeah.
Am I confusing these things?
I should have mentioned too, this is an estimate of kind of a maximum,
Okay.
but the district can decide to issue less than this. So then we just wanted to show you, I should have mentioned that this is kind of sort of an upper limit of what the district could get.
I see.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The other question as we go through this too would be, the reality of how much money can we actually spend during facility upgrades in 1 year or 2 years. We are pretty well, a lot of our work has to be done during the summer and the breaks. And, I always say we're like a year-round school too. And so we'd want to look at all of those numbers as we determine the amount of the bond. So this would be the maximum that we would probably go out for, but we'd really want to come back and look at our facility master plan and look at what are those priorities that we want to accomplish for us.
Stacey, can I also add, as you may recall when Dale was here last time, we were talking about strategically looking at some opportunities to leverage as the current bond and the current bond rates continue to decrease. Remember Dale talking about that if we wanted to present an option to the community where it would be a no cost increase, that we would be committed to the current bond rate. What Joe's showing us tonight is that if we went out and took out a new bond and we were going to assess the full $30, this would be the amount, and that $30 would be above and over what the current tax rate is. So this is kind of like the most we would want to go for scenario. But if strategically, if we wanted to promise to the community that we were going to go out for, say, a no tax increase type of bond, it would then lower the amount that we could potentially get. So I just want to preface that, as you remember Dale talking about, there's a range here. This would be the most, and then depending upon what we want to do as far as any kind of a commitment to the current tax rate, then there would be a floor.
Okay.
So this is the high mark.
Okay, thank you. And then Jerry had a question.
Yeah, 3.
Sure.
No, hopefully it'll go real quick. It's just staying on the sort of the definition or the derivation of the bonding capacity. So we talked about $30 per $100,000 of assessed value. Just want to make sure this assessed value overall real, even though you show single family homes here, it's really all real property, industrial, commercial. That's how you just happen to have shown in the next size single family, but it's not based solely on residential. Just want to make sure
Yeah.
that's clear. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And that we don't have the slide here, but
It's-
every
okay.
district is going to have a different percentage. So,
Sure.
you know, some are going to be 90% single family homes, others might be like 60.
Right.
So, but exactly right. Yeah, it's going to
Okay.
be all
And
taxable
then,
properties.
so this number 430, is it so we've referred to it as a total bonding capacity. Is that what we're able to issue, or is it, or do we need to subtract from it bonds we already have outstanding out in the community? So do you understand my question?
Yes, so this is the total amount that the district could issue, the total amount of new bonds that they could
Oh,
issue.
total amount of new bonds.
New bonds. So, yeah, so,
Okay.
new bonds.
New bonds. Okay, great. And then the third question is probably more for staff, is if we do go out for a voter sort of survey, will we go out with specific amounts in mind? Or will we do some work to figure out what the amounts are and go out for that survey? Or will we go out for just a yes, no, yeah, you could speak on that a bit, Chris.
I think we should probably do is we will come back with Dale
Mhm.
and we can kind of talk through that, because I think there are some pros and cons as far as how much we want to go out for, depending upon really how much we want to affect the tax rate.
Okay,
So I would recommend that we bring Dale back and we can get some feedback from the board.
great. All right, thank you. Thanks.
Ava?
Yeah, I had, and it's not necessarily if you know the answer, but I forgot how much per month was the property owners paying when our last partial tax dropped off in this past June 2023. You guys remember that? I mean,
The parcel tax amount, I think, was $250 per parcel.
oh,
So-
it was $250 per
A
parcel.
parcel, it's not per month, but per
Not per
parcel.
month, but it's per parcel, yeah,
225.
225.
225, so, okay. Just thinking about differences, apple oranges, yeah.
I think on this graph here illustrated as showing with that $30, as our old bond runs out and our new bonds come in, that one of the selling points would be is there's no additional cost. There's no new cost, that they're already incurring this cost on their property taxes, and it would just extend out now till 2052. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have a slide in the appendix. And I think you looked at something similar last time, so. Oops, sorry,
Ah.
wrong way.
This one?
So these are the current these are the tax rate projections for the currently outstanding bonds. And so, yeah, sort of what Chris was talking about earlier. One option is to do a lower amount for the new election. I think we looked at it before, maybe, I think it was about 300 million. And basically structure that as an extension. So there's no overall increase in the tax rate. So that's kind of what Chris is talking about with a lower amount.
So Joe, just to make sure I understand, so when you look at this graph here, currently, as of 2024, the total combined tax rate that our community is paying toward the bonds is somewhere in excess of $40 per $100,000 of assessed value. As time goes on, that rate is dropping, and so as you can see there, I think it's 2028. If everything remains the same, that the current tax rate will drop down to somewhere just above 20.
Exactly. And a lot of that is due to the 95 election, those bonds being paid off. And so you have sort of a cliff there where potentially a new bonds can be structured there. Again, it would have to be a smaller amount than the 430. But that's, one alternative for a new election.
And I guess that's,
Orange bonds drop off in 2028.
Right, yeah.
and so maybe I think I'll just end on the note that as we look at the decrease in the tax rate, we're looking at it as an opportunity to then come back and have the community approve some additional bonds. And if we structure the tax rate in a way that the tax rate won't be anything more than maybe what they're currently paying today. So that's really the object here.
Any additional questions? Erin, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
And so I think, circling to the presentation tonight, we just have it as a discussion so that we can provide the information. If there is, we would be happy to bring Dale back and he can talk about what a survey, what that format would be. As I said, this is the beginning initial conversation, so we're going to continue these on, but we just wanted to bring this information forward. Again, two separate things, really. One is a refinance and the other is looking ahead to the bond. And so Stacey, could you bring that conversation
Stacey,
back?
could we maybe get some sense from the board as far as, do we want to continue exploring the refinancing?
Sure.
So, but I think I was asking the same question, what's the right time, right? That's, I think, if we can get a little bit more, I know what exactly you said, but something more clarity on that, like kind of what's the right time. I think, yeah, we should explore, no doubt in that, but are we ready or should we wait for some time and all those things?
I think that could be, if you give the go ahead for us to continue to explore, that would be part of what comes back, is just timing wise and the whole.
Can I understand because you had mentioned in the timeline slide that it would be around 3 months or so. Is that for both items?
2019 and 2020?
Yeah, so that would be I would say maybe 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months, that's for the
refinancing.
refinancing, okay.
Yeah,
And then and that's.
Two different timelines.
Two different timelines, and you're asking for direction right now from the board.
On this first timeline,
On the first timeline, whether or not we want to move.
explore or not.
Should we,
Maybe just a thumbs up if you're
Okay.
interested in
Yeah.
exploring, or-
or any
I just-
additional
I just
questions or
have-
comments?
I just have a comment. I think it's always a good idea to save the taxpayers money if we can. If it doesn't cost anything to do further exploration, I think it makes sense to do that. In terms of whether or not we're going to do it, then I think that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, further exploration for me makes sense.
+1.
Okay.
To what? For this?
Yeah, I think I'm certainly in favor of exploration. I know nothing is ever free. This will take staff time, but I'm happy with that. But I'm assuming there isn't external funding to just even explore. So I'm supporting it with that assumption. And I think coming back, I actually would like to understand more about the fees. And then if we could get a more accurate estimate, taking account the future value of money, I think that would be great. So thanks.
Yeah, I said,
Okay, all
yeah, 2 minutes, okay.
right, and I'm also in favor of exploring. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all
Jen.
right, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I just have one other question. I think it's probably for Chris or for Stacy. It feels like the last time we did a survey about a bond, we surveyed on two different amounts of money. It was something like 250 million and 400 million or something. Am I
Something like-
remembering that correctly?
We did on two different values to see
Yeah,
how
so-
one surveyed over the other.
I know that Dale is not here and I don't know if Joe would know the answer, but is that typically what we would do again if we surveyed?
Yeah, I could talk about it. That's pretty common to survey different amounts. So yeah, I think that would be pretty normal.
Thank you.
Last one in the same thing. So what's the timing of the survey? Like, is it closer to the 24 sometime, or because we have to have the decision by August, right? Next
Right.
August.
So the recommendation is to do the survey as soon as possible because it will give us some
As-
indication
oh.
whether we do pursue it or not. So I would recommend if we are going to do a survey, we make a decision in the next month. So that it can begin that process and get the information because as I said, I think it's about a 10 to 12 week turnaround.
But
to get
the
survey.
election is like kind of about 13, 14 months away from now, right? So 24. It's about 14 months. So things can change. So that's what how many people, so the surveys, one is the amount, what you said, and second thing is could be support or not, right? I think there could be multiple aspects of it. So if we get a result now, let's say 60% of the people support this. So should we be doing closer to the election then again also, because or before we make the final decision, because this is about a year from now. If we get things can change, hopefully it will not change. But if it happens, is it not too far? What's the typical timing?
Defer
That's
to
why.
Joe for that because I know that you guys do a lot of the surveys.
Yeah, I
so-
mean, I think Dale's recommendation, I guess, is, he's recommending to do things sooner rather than later, because you're right. I mean, it is 14 months away, but I think his sense and our sense is that time, it goes by fast. You do bring up a good point, maybe things could change, but we've already done a number of surveys and my sense is that there's value in that for at least gauging, where the community is right now. So I think that would be his recommendation, is to move forward, as soon as reasonable.
Well, I think that too, there's something to be said for giving us plenty of time we're going to have to go out to our community and do a lot of education and reasons why this is so important to our district. We want to make sure we give ourselves time to do that. And I don't know how that fits with the timing of the survey.
I think the survey could generate and provide us some of that information because some of the questions will be for the amount. It'll give us a better sense. When we have an idea of the amount, then as we do look at our facility master plan, it does allow us to start frameworking what would we be asking for in the bond. And without some of that information, it's difficult to know exactly what we'd be looking for. It also could be one of two things. It could come back with a very positive rating where we feel like we have the momentum and we continue educating our community, or it may come back with a very high percentage, and we would have to identify, where do we need to be educating our community on to get them to be that approval rate, and that will take some time too. So again, I think the more information we have, the better we can inform.
I agree.
I like the idea of going early. I mean, I know it's about 14 or 12 months till the next election, but people are already starting to get out there and running for the 2024 November election, which I believe if we were to go forward, the bond would be on. But going early, also what Phyllis was saying and you all reflecting is that it gives a chance for us to respond to community for questions, clarifying questions and the education of why we need a bond. But also in addition to that, and more opportunities to hear that there is a bond coming up. So it's not like all of a sudden we're going to spring it on them and say, hey, there's this bond. How come I never heard about it? So I think it's a good idea that we're doing it early, and also having that direction from the survey. And that's that. I'm hoping with the survey results that will give us a direction of looking at the concerns and be able to have those community events that open sessions or maybe like a town hall or something that reaches out to community and having that dialogue, but also not just that, but with their parents, having conversations with them. So.
Thanks, Ava. For me, I think I'm kind of a little bit in the middle. I see the sense of waiting a little bit, more because I'd want to get a better sense of what we're putting on the survey, what we're asking. And if we're saying that we're going to do a survey in a month, that really doesn't give us much time in terms of board meetings between now and a month from now. So I guess I would just, I would request that the board get some some information on what's, what are the things that we're asking. At some point, we talked about getting a tech bond, like maybe, I don't know. And of course, you guys can figure that out. But just getting a better sense of maybe the range of things that we might be asking, and giving us a little bit of time to look at that.
And I would definitely echo and recommend that we bring, Dale and Joe back in our next board meeting and have some of that information so that we can further dive into it. Sounds like there's an interest of pursuing the survey, just not the when and the how of it yet. So that's at least enough direction for us.
Maybe I don't know, if we're doing it early, I would probably ask for one more survey to the part of it, but that's possible. So we have to look it over, but let's get more information, but it's all our favorite person.
Yeah.
Only the timing we have and the content. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are going to move on to our action items. 8.1, approval of the amendment to the employee contract for the district superintendent. And since this is an action item, we need a motion on the table before we proceed. So
I move to approve.
Thank you, Phyllis, and a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry. And Mike, are you presenting?
Yeah, so the contract, thank you. The contract of employment for between the district and Superintendent Yao is set to expire on June 30th, 2025. So the staff is recommending that the contract be extended for an additional 1 year, starting July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2026. And there were no other changes made to the contract, just that 1 year.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from your side?
No questions.
Any public comments?
No, there are not.
Well, I'll just say that I think CUSD is very lucky to be having Superintendent Yao running our district. And I think what I've seen since she stepped into this role is that our district has made a lot of strides in a lot of our priorities in our strategic plan. From academic excellence, we've seen all the things that have happened in our schools to the sense of belonging, which I think we really saw a lot of last year. So I'm very happy to be voting in favor of that. So Erin, can you do a roll call vote?
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye. Great. Motion carries. Congratulations. Our next action item 8.2, approval of Citizens Parcel Tax Committee membership renewal. And this is also an action item, so we need a motion on the table before we proceed.
I'll do the motion.
Satish, and a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry. And Chris, is this you?
Yes. Thank you. Let me. So as we all know that our parcel tax is going to be sunsetting. However, we do have one final requirement as we close out the fiscal year 21-22. We do need to have the parcel tax committee do their final annual report. And so this will be the last year of our parcel tax committee. However, as you see on the list, we have one of our members that is completely turned out, Roberta Holloman. She's been on the committee now for 3 consecutive 2-year terms. We would have loved to have her stay on for this last year, but unfortunately we are not able to do that. And so we have also returning members. We have tonight before you one reappointment, so we do need you to approve the reappointment of Mark Canaboo, who represents the taxpayer organization. And then we have our newest member, Shelpa Bambori, who represents actually a business in our community. And so we like to recommend to the board to appoint the new member, Shelpa Bambori, and reappoint
Mark Canterbury to the Parcel Tax Committee for one last year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Do we have any questions or discussion from the board? Okay. Do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
All right, so I just want to, on behalf of the board, want to thank all of our parcel tax committee members. It's a lot of work, and a lot of details, lots of things that they have to oversee. So thank you to Roberta for completing those 6 years for us, and to Shilpa for stepping into this role, and for Mark for being willing to be reappointed. And of course, thank you to all of our returning committee members, Daryl, Priya, Herbert, April, and Jolie. So
Sylvia, before you take action, we would probably like to invite Roberta to the board. We'd like to maybe honor her at one of our next meetings. It's customary and ceremonial. We'd like to honor her or honor members with the certificate and come to the board and we can thank them.
absolutely, yeah.
Do we have, do that through agenda setting, or is that?
I think staff can,
We could
Staff
just,
can
we
do
can
that.
just put it on
yeah,
the
staff
agenda.
can put it on the agenda for next time. Or for whenever it's most convenient.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Aaron, can you do a roll call vote for us?
Trustee Manhato.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Bye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye.
Trustee Leong.
Aye. Great, thanks. Motion carries. And next item, board activity. This is a chance for board members to share and receive information regarding committee meetings or events that they have attended. So who would like to start?
I have nothing.
Sylvia and I attended the new hire luncheon on August 11th, right after our last board meeting. And it was good seeing our newbies, and there's a good mix of teachers that are like new to teaching, and there are a good mix of teachers who've been teaching for a while from other school districts. And the emotion and energy was very positive in there, and it was really good.
Okay, and nothing for me either, other than, have fun going to see a lot of different school first days and TK and kinder orientations. So that was really fun. Last on the agenda tonight is agenda setting. So does anyone have any agenda items they're either calling for review or request new items to be added? All right. Okay, so next on the agenda is public comments for our closed session. Do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
So with that, we are going to adjourn for closed session. Our next board meeting will be September 14th. And thanks to everyone who joined us tonight.